They never hit you. They never screamed. They never locked you in a room or threatened your life. No, they saved you again and again from loneliness, from failure, from yourself. And that's what makes it so hard to see the bars. Because the prison didn't come with pain, it came with comfort. Let's talk about reversed Stockholm Syndrome. Not when the victim falls in love with the abuser, but when the abuser becomes addicted to playing the role of savior. And in doing so, they break you slowly, gently, carefully, while holding your hand the entire time. Let's talk about how it begins. It starts with kindness. They see your wounds, the way you flinch when someone raises their voice, the hesitation in your laugh, the way your eyes avoid mirrors. They tell you it's okay, that you don't need to explain, that you're safe now, and they mean it. At first, they give you advice, they offer help, they listen when no one else does. They understand things about you you've never spoken aloud, and it feels like air after drowning. You let them in, because why wouldn't you? They've done nothing but care. Let's talk about how caring becomes control. At some point, the help stops feeling helpful. They ask where you are because they worry. They don't like your friends because they're bad for you. They correct how you speak because they know you can be better. They suggest what to wear, how to talk, who to trust, because they believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And when you start to resist, even a little, they don't get angry. They get disappointed. They say things like, I thought you trusted me. After everything I've done for you, I just want what's best. You know I love you, right? Let's talk about emotional dependency as manipulation. They don't break you with threats. They break you with love. Every time you pull away, they remind you how lost you were before them, how no one else saw your potential, how much better you are now. Because of them, they become the mirror, the moral compass, the meaning. You stop asking yourself what you want and start asking what they would want. You start filtering your behavior, your voice, your identity through their expectations. You become a project, not a person. Let's talk about why they need to save you. Because if you get better, if you become independent, confident, whole, they lose control, not just of you, of themselves, because their identity is tied to your brokenness. They are good because you are in need. And the second you stop needing them, you become a threat. Let's talk about the guilt you begin to carry. You want space. You want air. You want to make your own decisions, your own mistakes, your own life. But every time you try, you feel cruel because they only ever tried to help, because they didn't have to stay, but they did, because they could be with someone else, but they chose you. And slowly, the roles reverse. You start protecting them from the truth, from your anger, from your growth, because growing means hurting them, and hurting them would make you the bad one. Let's pause. You think abuse always looks violent, but sometimes it looks like rescue. And the person who says, I saved you, is the same one who made sure you stayed broken just enough to need saving. You think you're free. After all, there are no chains, no bruises, no screaming matches in the middle of the night. But if someone asked you why you haven't left, why you haven't changed, why your voice gets quieter with every year, you'd find yourself defending the one who holds the key. Let's talk about what it means to love your captor's version of you. Not the real you, the one they helped shape. The softer version, the version that listens more, cries less, agrees more, fights less. The version who second guesses every boundary. The version who hesitates before speaking. The version who looks over their shoulder, not out of fear, but out of reflex. You didn't become that person overnight. It happened inch by inch, suggestion by suggestion, correction by correction, until one day, you're sitting in a room you didn't choose, living a life you didn't build, saying words that don't feel like yours, and you're smiling because they're proud of you. Let's talk about how love becomes a surveillance system. Every emotion you feel runs through their approval. You hesitate to celebrate without them. You hold back criticism. You filter your grief so it doesn't worry them. You internalize their voice. Don't overreact. Don't be so sensitive. Let me explain what's really going on. I only want to help. Eventually, their help sounds like your conscience, and that voice becomes a guard inside your own mind. Let's talk about how you learn to apologize for yourself. You apologize for being tired, for asking for space, for having needs, for making decisions they didn't guide. Because even after everything, you still believe they know better. Why wouldn't you? They were there when you fell apart. They picked up the pieces. They taught you how to walk again. Even if they replaced your legs with crutches, they held you upright. And that feels like love. Let's talk about how the world sees them. To everyone else, they are generous, kind, devoted. They speak about you with pride, about how far you've come, about how much they've invested in you. They're your partner, your parent, your therapist, your hero. And if you ever try to pull away to speak about the control, the shame, the distortion, you're met with disbelief. You're just ungrateful. You wouldn't even be here without them. Are you really going to throw all that away? Let's talk about what happens when you start to wake up. It starts with doubt. Maybe you find an old photo of yourself smiling without fear. Maybe a stranger tells you something kind and expects nothing in return. Maybe you hear someone else's story and feel a sting of recognition. You begin to notice how tired you are of being helped, how quiet you've become in your own story, how your healing has felt more like slow, gentle disappearance. You begin to wonder if your pain was ever the problem or just the excuse. Let's talk about the shame that keeps you inside the cage. You don't want to hurt them. You don't want to betray the person who stood by you. You don't want to admit that the love you clung to was a kind of emotional leash. You question yourself constantly. Maybe I do need them. Maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe this is just how love is. But deep down, a part of you is screaming. A part of you that remembers what it felt like to breathe without supervision. Let's talk about the moment you try to leave. Not even physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically. You set a boundary. You make a decision on your own. You say no, or worse, you say nothing. And suddenly, the mask slips. They become cold, withdrawn, accusatory. After everything I've done for you, I guess you don't need me anymore. Fine, do it your way, but don't come running back. The same arms that once held you now fold in judgment. The same voice that once soothed you now shames you. The same person who once saved you now threatens to leave you drowning without them. Let's pause. You think you're ungrateful. You think you're selfish. You think you're broken for wanting more, but maybe you're just finally seeing the prison. And maybe you're ready to stop defending your captor and start rescuing yourself. Leaving isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper, a delayed reply, a boundary too small to notice, a change in tone, a little less gratitude in your voice. But they notice, because they always notice. Let's talk about the moment you decide to leave, even if only inside. You haven't packed bags. You haven't slammed doors. But something inside you shifts. You stop asking for permission. You start remembering who you were before them. You imagine a future where your choices aren't filtered through someone else's fears. And that is unforgivable. Let's talk about how they react to your silence. First, they'll pretend they don't notice. They'll act unfazed. But soon, the questions come. Are you okay? Is there something wrong? Why are you being distant? And when you don't collapse an apology, when you hold your ground, the mood changes. Suddenly, they're the victim. You've changed. You don't appreciate anything I've done. I don't even know who you are anymore. Let's talk about the emotional debt they force you to repay. They'll remind you of every breakdown they talked you through, every sacrifice they made, every time they chose you over someone else. You become a ledger, a list of favors, a living receipt, and the interest is growing. Because now that you're trying to reclaim your life, they want repayment, not in money, not in words, in obedience. Let's talk about the ghost of guilt that haunts every step forward. You feel like a traitor, like a child walking away from the only home you've ever known. Even if that home was built on manipulation, you remember the good times, the warmth, the safety, the healing. You question yourself, am I being ungrateful? Maybe they really were just trying to help. Maybe this is all my fault. That's the trap, because the more you blame yourself, the less you leave. Let's talk about the identity crisis of freedom. Once you're outside their influence, you realize something terrifying. You don't know who you are. Without their voice guiding you, you're lost. Without their praise validating you, you feel invisible. Without their criticism shaping you, you don't know what to do next. It's not just grief, it's disorientation. Because they didn't just control your life, they became it. Let's talk about what healing really looks like. Not joy, not empowerment, not some cinematic breakthrough. Healing looks like crying because you made a decision without asking someone first. Sitting in silence and realizing you don't know what you believe. Feeling love from someone else and wondering if you're even allowed to accept it. Flinching when someone says, I just want to help. It looks like rebuilding trust in your own mind. Piece by piece, slowly, unsteadily, tenderly. Let's talk about the loneliness no one warned you about. You were always lonely, even when they were there. But now the silence feels vast. You don't know who to call. You don't know how to explain what happened. You don't know if anyone will believe you, because from the outside, they were perfect. And if you say what really happened, if you describe the slow erosion of self, the kind voice that hollowed you out, you worry people will look at you and say, that doesn't sound like abuse. And in that moment, you feel more invisible than ever. Let's talk about the flickers of light that return. It starts in the smallest ways. You laugh fully. You cry without shame. You speak without rehearsing. And the voice in your head doesn't ask for permission first. You notice yourself standing up straighter, breathing deeper, trusting your goo teeth only a little, and you realize something. You're still in pieces, but at least now, they're your pieces. Let's pause. You think leaving was selfish. You think healing means forgetting, but the truth is, leaving was love. For the self you almost lost, for the life you almost gave away, for the truth you weren't supposed to see. And healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering who you were. Before being saved meant staying small. Freedom is not a moment. It's a process. And for people like you, people who were saved into silence, freedom feels less like flying and more like learning to walk on legs you didn't know were yours. Let's talk about what comes after survival. You escaped. Maybe not physically. Maybe you still see them, still get messages, still hear their voice in your head. But something changed. You stopped believing that you needed to be rescued. You stopped measuring your worth by how much they approved. You started asking, what do I want? And the question terrified you because no one ever taught you how to answer it. Let's talk about the fear of your own power. When someone else made your choices for years, told you what was best, what was healthy, what was good for you, you begin to distrust your own instincts. You second guess your desires. You minimize your voice. You assume independence will lead to punishment. You've been trained to see freedom as danger and safety as submission. And now, in the open air, your first breath feels like drowning, but you keep breathing anyway. Let's talk about reclaiming your life, piece by piece. It doesn't happen all at once. It looks like saying no and not explaining why, choosing something just because you want it, letting people think what they want and not correcting them, realizing you don't owe anyone a version of yourself they can understand. You begin to realize the life you were taught to live wasn't built for you. It was built for them, for their control, their validation, their image of what healed looks like. Let's talk about the quiet rage that comes later. For a while, you'll feel sadness, then guilt, then silence. But one day, you'll feel something else. Rage. Not explosive, not theatrical. A slow burn for the time you lost, for the person you became to survive, for the parts of you that were buried under praise and control and love. And that rage, don't run from it because it's sacred. It's your soul telling you, I deserved more. Let's talk about what love feels like without control. When you finally meet someone new, a friend, a partner, even yourself, you'll feel uneasy because they won't try to fix you. They won't track your every move. They won't need you to need them. And at first, it will feel like neglect, but it's not. It's space. And in that space, you'll rediscover your shape. You'll laugh louder, feel safer, make decisions you never thought you could. And the best part, no one will ask for credit. Let's talk about the new story you begin to write. It won't be tidy. You'll still have days when you miss the cage, when the voice in your head says, it was easier when someone else decided for you. And you'll sit with that feeling and not let it pull you back, because you'll remember easy is not the same as free. And this story you're writing now, it's messy, imperfect, unfolding slowly, but it's yours. Every choice, every word, every misstep, every triumph. You are the author now, and no one else gets to edit your pages. Let's close with this. You were never broken. You were shaped by someone who needed to be needed, who made you smaller to feel big, who saved you to stay in control. But you saw through it. You walked out. You rebuilt. And now you are whole. Not because someone put you back together, but because you stopped letting them take you apart,